right, Ron. Tell us a little about your son.
My son is a 21-year-old, very low-functioning, nonverbal, autistic young man.
And fear. What's some of the fear you face?
Well, a lot of the fear was earlier on in his life, just the fear of the unknown, and the fear that you had nowhere to turn for any of the resources or the knowledge that you needed. So that was probably the most fearful time was when he was diagnosed at 2 years old.
And stress.
Stress, yeah, there's been a lot of stress, as you could imagine, with a low-functioning adult male, autistic, and his outburst, being up all night, a lot of nights and all that, it just generates a lot of stress in general.
Okay, and the last one you wanted to change from isolation to...
Yeah, I wanted to change it to pride,
Cool.
because I just can't tell you how proud I am of my son. And I'll just tell you, he's taught me more about life than I have with him, and he's just taught me so much more about love than I can imagine. So that's just been an amazing opportunity for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, tell us a little about your son.
My son is Cyrus. He's 10 years old. He's mid-level autistic, I would say, if that makes sense, because when he got diagnosed, they said he couldn't do anything for himself. So that meant he was going to be have no function whatsoever. But through years, it seems that he's progressed farther than what the doctors or the experts said he would.
And how about fear? Some of the fear you face.
The fears I've faced come in a lot of ways, from him getting out of the house, getting hurt, him hurting himself, him not being able to tell me when he's sick or something's really wrong with him, or somebody taking him because he may wander off or something like that, and they may hurt him or something like that.
And stress.
Having a hard day, or what I think is a hard day for me, and then realizing all my hard days I've had in my life don't amount to when he's having a tough day and he can't say what's hard, what's wrong. He's trying to ask me for something, or he wants something, and I can't figure out what it is, and he may start crying, and he may start having a moment, and I still can't figure out what it is that he needs.
And isolation.
The isolation was, like some other fathers I've heard say, you feel real isolated because people look at you and they don't understand why this kid is screaming or having a moment, because I never understood it until I became a parent with a child with autism, and not having anyone I could turn to at the time, because we didn't know anything about man-to-man or autism, blue skies of autism, anything like that. So you just kind of felt that you had to do this by yourself. You always had, wherever you went, you had to have that child with you, or you were not allowed to go to places because people won't accept it. He might have a meltdown and start screaming and stuff like that, and then they may ask us to leave. So we didn't want to put our child in that, or the family, my whole family, into this situation. So not being able to have anyone at home I can turn to, not having a family around that we can have come to the house and watch, or anything like that, it used to be very tough, and we felt very isolated. And now, with the different groups, it's helped us a lot.
Oh, thank you.
I got a 19-year-old stepson. Came into the relationship 6 years ago. He was autistic, epilepsy, just all around. Good kid though.
Tell me some of your fears as a stepfather.
Fears of a stepfather: hanging out with the wrong crowd. He wants to be involved with everybody, talking to strangers. He'll go up and give anybody a handshake, high five. just getting with that wrong kids that want to mistreat them instead of help them go farther.
And stress.
Oh, like he said earlier, coming home, he wants to tell you something. They're so joyful. They want to get something out, but they don't know how to say it. They don't know how to put it in perspective. I want to do this. Let's go do this. It just gets under your skin. With wait, we're not going to do it. Let's do something else first. But no, and everything has to be on time and precise with them. If something's at 11, we got to be there at 11. If not, meltdowns and breakdowns.
And isolation.
Going to public with them, they tend to set people off, set them off the wrong way. So like they said earlier, it's trying to see where we can go, what we can do. And it's not holding back no more, it's join him. If he's enjoying himself, have a good time. If he's being loud, why not? Let the whole family be loud. It's all in make embarrassment of the whole family, not just one person.
That's all right.
So, but just getting out there with the family and doing stuff with it and showing other people that we're there to support each other with it too, so.
All right. Thank you.
I still wanted to say something.
All right, Frederick.
Tell us a little about yourself.
So I have a 12-year-old, and he's a high-functioning. Asperger's would be the correct diagnosis on the autism spectrum, and also has sensory processing disorder.
Okay. Tell me some of your fears.
So I thought about this, and for me, fear is more of a description. It was the enemy at first. When you first learn that something's, different in the situation. Your son acts differently than his siblings. He's one of 4. And so fear was something that you had to overcome. What are other people going to think? How's this going to work? The dynamics of the family that changed. So that was, for a long time, that was the other opponent in the ring, was fear, was overcoming that. And I think we're 10 years into this, and for us, fear has become something that we've really overcome. We've used it, as you would say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. For us, it's really brought us together because we work as a family unit better to overcome situations, to not feel fearful of what someone else thinks, or even if there's a problem within the family, learn to kind of talk it out instead of just let that fear drive you to other things such as anger and some of these other things.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Stress.
Yeah, so stress is always a factor, whether you have an autistic child or not. You're married, it's just a stress. But for us, stress is really, at this point being 12, comes a lot from the school environment.
Mm-hmm.
He comes home, he's stressed, he's had a tough day because he's been dealing with a different environment, kids that don't understand. Even in a program that he's in with specialists and thing, it's still a stressful thing, the change that he goes through. So for us, stress is still something that we really worked, through and try to use calming techniques to really help him calm down.
And isolation.
Isolation. So that's the one you got to overcome, because if it wasn't for groups like Man to Man or Blue Skies Over Autism, the isolation is what really just drives a wedge between your son and your family, or your child with special needs and your family, or even your wife and yourself, because the isolation will keep you apart from others that really understand what you're going through, and that understanding is the bridge, that is the hand up saying, oh hey, no, you don't need to be down in that pit, come on up here, let's talk about it, and then you feel like you're really a part of something. So it's great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Mary, tell us about your son.
Well, my son is 25 years old now. I've known he's had high on the spectrum with Asperger's and attention deficit disorder, PD disorder. He's been diagnosed since he was 4 years old, and it's been a long road. He's very high functioning as far as being able to do stuff in the verbal, but his problem is he has kind of quit his mental ability. He's kind of stopped at probably around age 12 maybe, and I've always prayed that he would be able to develop a little bit more maturity, but it hasn't happened yet. And so it's a day-to-day struggle. Sometimes we're trying to get him to get more involved with other things, but he really doesn't have any interest in anything.
Well, just tell me some of the fears you have.
Well, most of my fears now, early on it was other things, but now it's pretty much his future. And I'm trying to look forward to his future, is where he's going to go, and that's been he doesn't want to fit into work. I can't find any kind of thing he could get into yet to something he'd be interested in to doing, because a lot of things if he ain't interested, you're not gonna get him to perform well at anything. And so that's been my struggle. Like right now he's back there watching cartoons.
I think my daughter is.
Yeah, he's watching cartoons. He's happy. He's watching Scooby Doo.
And stress.
Stress. Man, he handles stress well. He doesn't. He can't walk through the little casino area or get anywhere near it because the smoke bothers him, and he kind of really acts out. You know, that's a little embarrassing. I can try to explain to him that's not going to hurt him too much to smell that smoke, but he knows it's there. So, but we handle stress okay. We work together on that.
Good.
I'm sure at times he's stressful on things.
Okay.
We handle it.
Isolation.
And isolation. Early on, it was pretty isolated. It was isolated. I found myself unable to go places and do things, but since he's high functioning and is able to stay at home and watch TV, and I can leave him there and we can go do something as a family of four. We've been able to get around that isolation quite a bit in some respects, but sometimes, every once in a while, he'll flood the bathroom, the toilet overflow or something, but he handles it pretty well. So as far as the isolation, I think we got that pretty much fixed.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Hello, how
Tell
are
me
you?
about your son.
Okay, I will say it in Spanish, so for the people that really need to talk in Spanish.
Okay.
Mi nombre es Héctor Ibarra, tengo un hijo con autismo. Le dicen que es mediano el autismo que él tiene, que no es, que no puede explicarse bien, que no puede socializar bien con la gente, pero va mejorando todos los días.
Can you tell me about some of the fear?
El miedo que tenemos o el miedo que tenía antes hacia el autismo era no saber qué hacer, cómo manejarlo, cómo socializar con la gente, cómo explicarle a la gente qué era el autismo, porque ni yo mismo sabía qué es lo que era el autismo. Era sacar a mi hijo a pasear a algún lado, pensar que que el niño estaba teniendo o estaba mal portado, cuando realmente lo que quería era demostrarme que no quería estar ahí. Es difícil, porque alrededor de ti nadie te quería ayudar, o tú pensabas que nadie te quería ayudar, que es algo muy diferente. Pero básicamente lo fuimos superando poco a poco y ayudando a Héctor, que es mi hijo.
And stress.
Bueno, el estrés más grande que puedo tener un padre que sabe que su hijo tiene una disabilidad es el futuro de él, saber a dónde va, qué es lo que puede hacer, qué es lo que puede lograr, qué tanto lo puedes ayudar tú a que llegue a establecerse a él mismo suficientemente para vivir solo, para poder estar ahí, para poder manejar la vida lo mejor posible que él pueda. Realmente es eso.
And isolation.
La separación que tú me preguntas es más el concepto de... Yo nunca lo dejé que se separara de la demás gente, nunca dejé que él hiciera las cosas por su cuenta, siempre estuve yo con él, siempre intenté introducirlo a la demás gente, hacer que hiciera que la gente viera que él podía hacer cosas, aunque fueran un poco diferentes. En casa, mi esposa, Rosy, se frustraba mucho porque ella quería salir a algún lado y Héctor no quería salir. Era más el estrés familiar que teníamos que lo que él causaba en la familia, sino cómo hacer que ese estrés funcionara dentro de la familia y salir adelante en esto, que fue lo que hicimos en la casa, entre yo y mi esposa.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Jermaine,
How you doing?
tell us a little about your son.
Jason. What's up?
Tell us about your son.
Okay. He's 8 years old and he's high functioning.
Can you tell us some of the fears?
So, some of my fears are that my son, he would struggle with social emotional learning and that he would miss out on opportunities later on in life, which will, I think, will hinder his development as a person.
And stress.
I stress, some of my stresses consist of going out, participating in activities with my family, trying to explain or having to explain Jason's behavior and some of the things that trigger his behavior. Also, the breakdown in communication with my wife, because we see things in different spectrums.
Isolation.
Isolation. I have not participated in activities simply because I don't have to explain the situation of my family to other people. Also to not have to explain the situation in which my son is behaving at his age and maybe inappropriate, but others don't understand. So we have to continue to explain and justify why he's doing the things he's doing. So isolation, I have withdrawn from family outings and not participating with friends at parties and things of that nature so that I can avoid that type of situation.
Thank you.
I wasn't prepared for the questions, though.
Okay. You have a stepbrother, right?
Stepbrother that's 19, very functioning, talks and everything.
Great. Just tell me some of your fears as a sibling.
Well, like most people said here, that like here's some people that try to talk to him, act like they're his friend, but like they're just trying to use him as just something or like to make fun of.
And some stress that stress you out as a sibling.
Not much, just
Let me try it a different way. Something that just makes you mad, that kind of gets you a little angry at times.
when like sometimes he wants to do something just his way, like when we have a certain thing to do. Yeah.
Okay. And last one, ready?
No.
Come on, you can do the last one. You did good. Last one, isolation or just feeling alone sometimes.
What do you mean?
I mean, like you. I guess what I would say.
Like other friends understanding.
Yeah, the isolation, not friends not coming around, or you're not going around your friends, just staying away, something like that.
Yeah, some friends think like they try to stay away from it, but they don't actually know like what's the cause, why is he like this. Like whenever I came to this cruise, I saw the other people, and like looking around, being here, made me feel like thankful and like.
You're doing good. That's all
Yeah.
right.
It's awesome.
That's awesome. Thank you. You did good. See, it's over, just like the dentist.
Okay, sir. Tell me about your son or your daughter. I'm sorry.
I have a daughter that's 16 years old. She's pretty much on the, she's not, I wouldn't say low, but I wouldn't say moderate. She's in that sliding scale.
Tell me about isolation.
isolation. Through the years, we've learned that people we thought would be there weren't. Family, friends didn't want to be around. They just couldn't handle it. We were too much. Jazz was too much. We weren't getting invited to parties. Weren't getting invited to going out, and it's just that you start to look at yourself and say, I wonder why we didn't get an invitation to that party.
You know, when it comes to stress, there's different types of stress. Talk to me about what it's like stress living with autism.
The stress with autism is you feel helpless. That is so much you want to do, but they can't do. And a part of that stress is learning to give and take, because you can't put more on them than they can handle. And you're gonna have to take a little less off to make life better for them. And that was the hardest stress I think I had, to fit in her world and quit trying to make her fit in mine.
You know, when it comes to fear, we all have different types of fear, and tell me what it's like, fear related to autism, what it's like for you as a father. How has fear changed when you became an autistic father?
The biggest change is my daughter has limited words and she can't tell you anything. And I think my greatest fear that autism caused in our family is, I'm so afraid that something could happen to her and she couldn't tell me. She's almost like a pedophile's dream. You can grab her, she can't tell you who touched her, who did what to her. That's probably the biggest fear we live through, watching her every day, getting off the bus, watching her in town, making sure that nothing's changed with her.
Thank you, Mr. Jefferson.
Thank you.
All right. Now, tell us about your son.
My son's Kevin Fowler. He's 19. Fun-loving kid for the most part. Can make you smile one minute, make you reflective the next, make you sad one minute. Probably the biggest bundle of joy in our life, to be honest with you.
And tell me some of your fears.
Well, the biggest fear, I think everybody that has a kid like this, is that what happens when I'm gone, you know, and you have to plan for all that. What happens when they're out the door and they're in somebody else's care? What happens if he really needs something and I, as a father, or my wife as a mother, totally misunderstand what's going on with him, and he maybe has some type of physical condition or something else is going on with him and we can't help him. It's just that the fear of not doing the right thing, and I think a lot of us struggle with the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis, because because Kevin's nonverbal, and if you have a kid like that, you don't know if you're making the right decision, and you beat yourself up and things like that. I think that's hard as a parent to make those types of decisions without any information at all but your gut feel. And I think as you get down this road, the gut feel becomes really, really important. And I think that's where you can make a difference with your kids, just getting to know them, what situation you're in, what situations not to put them in, because the fear is there. If I do this, what's going to happen? But I think if you really gut level get to know your kid, and I think that's one of the beauties of autism. I think you get to know these individuals better than anybody in your life, because it's your job as a parent and a guardian and all that to make sure you know them well. But my fear is that I miss something or I misinterpret something and something bad could happen out of it, and I think that you live with a little bit of guilt when it does happen.
And stress.
I can probably go A to Z on this one. I think the biggest stress is just, again, making sure that you're doing the right things for them. And it's even like when they do things that happen, maybe they break something of yours or put a hole in the wall or whatever, or bite you. You have to learn how to get over. You have to have a very, very short memory when it comes to that kind of stuff, or else the stress will eat you up. I think whatever happens, you've got to let that go. That's water under the bridge, and you've got to move forward. And I think the more you learn to do that, and I think it's really hard for us too, because I think we talked earlier about dropping the pride. If you drop your pride and just say, all that doesn't matter, I'm not lesser of a man because I didn't react A, B, C way or whatever, I think that's how you really learn from it. And you know, I think if there's a good thing about autism, I think it changes our perspective on life. And we're still going to make a bunch of mistakes. I'm not going to tell you that we're not. We're gonna live with them, but the main stress is just, am I doing the right thing? Am I planning for him correctly? One of the things stress, and I want to tell anybody that's watching this, do not worry about what other people think. Drop that stress from day one, because you can't worry about what other people who are standing around, if your kid's having a meltdown, what they think about what you're doing, because it does not matter.
And isolation.
You know, others have said it pretty well. I used to do all this stuff, and then I got this kid that has a whole different type of kid. I had a kid who was an athlete, and we did all that whole thing, loved being a coach, doing all that stuff. And then Kevin comes along, and he's great at other stuff. And I think that happens with your typical kids too. Is that I think that you wind up having, they wind up doing different things. But where the isolations occurs is when you hang on to that life that you had before. I tell people all the time, look, I've had two lives. I had one before Kevin was diagnosed and one after. The one after doesn't have to be worse. That's in your mind. If you make it worse, you'll feel isolated, you'll feel connected. One of the reasons why I started Blue Skies, because I wanted people to have a set of friends that got it. That got it from A to Z. It said, hey, look, my kid may not be exactly like yours, but I get some of what you're saying, and talk to you about their stresses. Just like we had to do these interviews, I'm hearing a lot of other things that touch my heart, because even though my kid's not exactly like that, he's kind of like that. So the isolation's a big thing. If you try to fit into the world you had before, Frederick, I think if you just tell yourself that, look, my life now is going to be a little bit different. I've got to adjust to that, and quit hanging on to the way it was before.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.